So the first stage in the path is the awakening stage. The awakening stage is ruled by the element fire. This is the stage of our true surrendering and awakening to a higher power. This is an intense stage. Now on the pentagram, it represents the first line moving from ether to fire. Make that a little bigger. So it's this line from here to here. Now we draw it from here to here and starting from there for a particular reason, one that I'm not going to explain in these videos. That's the esoteric side of this practice. This path here is the awakening path. This is our fall from grace. This is our fall to rock bottom. This is our descent into the netherworlds. It's our fall into hell, so to speak, into our own ignorance, into our own pain, into our own suffering. This rock bottom experience, this awakening experience is often initiated by some kind of rock bottom, some kind of deep suffering, some kind of painful situation. For me, it was the breakup that happened in 2012. It just sent me into a downward spiral of recognizing my behavior was causing me all of this pain, and the way I was being in my relationships was causing me all of this pain. And then one day, a friend said to me, "Why don't you smoke some weed and relax?" I think I told you this story in my path video. And so I did. At the time, I didn't really use cannabis all that much. So I used some, and I started meditating, and then all of a sudden I had this deep awareness that it was my childhood traumas, particularly my relationship with my mother, that was causing my struggles in my relationships with women in my life. And so that was sort of my first awakening. And then after that, I was initiated into using DMT in a shamanic ceremony, in a shamanic setting with intentions, and that was very interesting. And then I was officially initiated into high magic. And that's when things significantly, exponentially accelerated. My business changed, my relationship changed, I had a big donation come to my business, I had a vehicle given to me right off the lot. I started eventually getting coached by one of the best coaches out there under this line of incredible coaches, and I started working with shamans, and I got initiated as a shaman, and eventually after that, and ayahuasca and all of that stuff. All of that happened after my initiation. It just went whoosh. My life just started to take off. I started to change. My ego started to dissolve. My body started to purge themselves so that I could start aligning with my higher self and my most authentic expression. So for me, it was really the initiation. I'm looking over here at my notes. I think I'd mentioned that in one of the earlier videos. For a lot of people, this experience is really the experience of experiencing a miracle. It's when a miracle comes into our life somehow. When I experienced my initiation ceremony, my mentor was, we were using psilocybin mushrooms for the ceremony. And again, it was in a high magic ceremony. It's a very specific type of ceremony. It's not just taking mushrooms and calling it a ceremony. It's a very specific rituals, very specific practices, very specific structures to how it's created. And the experience was just extraordinary. This mentor was channeling the great mother, the divine mother, the feminine energy. It was coming through him, and I could see it in his face, and I could see it in his mannerisms, and it was coming out in his words, and I could feel it from him. It was incredible. It was so powerful. And I experienced miracles in that night. And that's when my awakening really started, because then I knew that this stuff is real. Again, it's ruled by the element fire. So in the books I'm writing, in the Shamanic Warrior books or the Greatest Secret books, Aniel, the character, is in the first book, in the Pilgrimage, to learn about the awakening stage, he has to jump off a waterfall into a pool below full of electric eels, and he has to face his fears and do it anyway. And that's his making the decision. That's his fire decision, his will to change. But then in the next book, in the Apprenticeship, he gets trained by the Warrior Knight. And the Warrior Knight is the personification of the element fire. In the Hebrew systems, the element fire is represented by Archangel Michael. In my system, or this system, not my system, in the path, he's represented by, or fire is represented by the Warrior Knight. So if you imagine the Warrior Knight, it's sort of like this Knights Templar kind of character, right? This Warrior Knight is chivalrous, and all of the all of the characters you would think of a knight. Very, very loyal, very dependable, very strong, very fair, very reasonable, very just. He is dedicated to his own higher self. He's dedicated to God, not to man's law, not to human's law, the human laws. He's a perfect character of a warrior, incredibly brave, incredibly powerful, incredibly lethal if necessary, but would never use his skills for ill will, only to protect himself and to protect the higher good. So you imagine this character, that's who we're learning from in our awakening stage. Again, this is the esoteric side of it, so it's kind of getting into the imaginative side, but it's valuable. So imagining what you're really doing in the awakening stage is you're trying to integrate or become or upgrade to your warrior knight self, to the part of yourself that takes action, gets things done, faces your suffering, faces your fears, and moves forward because you know it's the right thing to do. We pull that courageous part of ourselves. We have to want this. In the pilgrimage, the gatekeeper tells Aniel, you have to want this like a drowning man wants air. You have to want this with every fiber of your being. We will not survive this whole path if we don't commit to it. If we don't have conviction to move forward. It's very important. We suddenly become aware of our own suffering. We become aware of the ways that we're settling for the job we don't like, or the relationship that doesn't serve us, or eating the foods that we don't want to eat, or drinking too much, or using drugs, or whatever. We start to become aware of our suffering and the suffering of others in the world around us. It's kind of intense for a while. We're like, holy shit, we're overwhelmed by all the suffering. We feel an overwhelming desire to change our circumstances, usually initiated by some level of suffering. Again, not always, but usually it's initiated by some level of suffering, some level of near-death experience, or a miraculous experience. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. And in this stage, we're learning to master fear. We're learning to generate courage from inside of us. Technically, our spiritual body will never fully be healed unless we learn how to generate courage in any circumstance. Courage is the willingness to take action. This is about our spiritual body. This is about us having faith in the universe. This stage teaches us how to heal our spiritual body. Each stage of this path is teaching us how to heal one of our bodies. Now, once you finish the awakening stage, it doesn't mean you're finished. It just means that you've learned how to heal your spiritual body. Now you can move on to learning how to heal your mental body. So when you get through this stage, it's when you've actually taken action, moved forward, did some scary things, and started creating momentum in your own healing and your own transformation. You don't need to know when your next stage is going to happen. That will just naturally happen. You'll flow in that direction. This stage, we're overcoming our suffering by actually facing our fears and taking massive action toward change. Massive action. And sometimes that massive action is accepting that we don't know what we don't know. For me, most of my life, this idea of spirituality and religion was a joke because I was introduced to Christianity at a very young age, and according to Christians, my family and I were all going to burn in hell. I mean, I was a bastard child. My parents were never married. They were drug dealers. They broke lots of laws. They were never married with each other, which is a sin in itself. So from the time I was old enough to know what religion was, I was like, I don't want to be spiritual then, because then I'm going to lose all my family. I'm not going to be with them anymore. We're all going to go to hell anyway. What's the point? So I rejected spirituality and almost generated a little bit of spiritual anger. I was angry towards spirituality. And so when my awakening really started, it was like, boom, I had no choice. I had to accept that there is something real to this. Maybe not Christianity, maybe not Taoism, maybe not Buddhism, maybe not Hinduism. Maybe there's not a religion that makes sense to me, but this makes sense. There is something else. I want to be totally transparent as well. I don't know if I would have gotten through this process as far as I've gotten without plant medicines. I've used cannabis as a medicine quite a lot throughout this journey. Not like every day, but sometimes every day, sometimes all day, sometimes parts of the day, sometimes not for days at a time. I've had to go through massive cleanses for each of my trip to Peru where I never used anything at all during those times. But a big part of this healing work has been with cannabis, psilocybin, dimethyltryptamine, and ayahuasca, and San Pedro and LSD and some others, but those are primarily the medicines I used. To grasp these ideas, cannabis is incredibly valuable. It relaxes us and allows us to connect to a higher part of ourselves in some cases when used properly. And when mixed with good nutrition and lots of water and good lifestyle activities, cannabis can be incredibly powerful. And it can help us understand these things at a deeper level. Not suggesting you use any plant medicines. I can't make that decision for you. That's something you have to decide on your own. This stage is really a stage of action, momentum, and change. We're changing things. Things are changing really fast. Things are transforming fast. We're, holy shit, our job doesn't work anymore. Holy shit, the relationships don't work. The friendships don't work. The way I treat myself doesn't work. Where I live doesn't work, whatever. We start recognizing that things need to change fast. Not to say that they do change fast, but we just recognize that change needs to happen. In the stories, Aniel is training to learn how to invoke the spirit of divine courage. So he's learning how to invoke Archangel Michael, or invoke the energy of the warrior knight even when the warrior knight's not around him. So if he's out in the street and he's about to get mugged or something, he can invoke divine courage in the form of his warrior knight self, and he can either run away or he can defend himself long enough to call for help or whatever. Or if he needs to do something really scary, he can invoke divine courage in that moment and take action and do the scary thing. And this is what we're really doing when we go through this stage, is we're learning how to have courage. We're learning how to take action in our lives. We're learning how to, there's a time to flow and there's a time to take action. And if flowing is taking us away from taking action, then that means that we've got some work left to do. At the end of this stage, the point of this is to get to a point where you're living in the flow all the time. But for some of us, living in the flow means a whole lot of procrastination, a whole lot of not taking action, a whole lot of not going anywhere. And if we don't have some idea of the direction that we're going in, then we're not really going anywhere. And we're not going to move forward, and we're not going to reach the level of freedom and healing that we truly desire. Again, flow is great, but if our nervous system has pain left in it, if our bodies have pain left in them, we're not really flowing, we're actually just stalling. We're staying in the same place, and we're not really moving forward all that much. Divine courage in the books and the stories is really the willingness to act on what is true for you. The willingness to move forward on what is true for you, even though it scares you. It scares me to put these videos out there. It scares me to say that God has spoken to me and has told me to share this stuff with the world. You know how scary that? I'm a former MMA fighter. I was a criminal for most of my younger years. To say that on camera, I don't know what kind of ridicule I'm going to get, what kind of backlash I could get as a result of that, but it doesn't matter because I know it's all just a reflection of my own self-judgment, and the only way to get over it is to just put my truth out there in a powerful way. So some of the ways that we can start to heal our spiritual body and ultimately upgrade it or nourish it, there are lots of terms I'm going to use, they're all interchangeable: heal it, cleanse it, nourish it, upgrade it, exercise it, whatever. The way that we can start to feed this body, to nourish this body, and to heal it is probably, and I know it sounds biased, but based on my research, it stands true. Martial arts are by far the most powerful way to start to really heal and upgrade your spiritual body. If you don't know how to protect yourself, then you will always be living in some kind of level of subconscious fear. Some of the most powerful spiritual leaders in history have had some kind of combat history. Moses was a general in the military. So some of these ancient scribes and sages, you don't hear about their previous lives, but a lot of them were trained in some kind of martial art. Martial arts and defending, whether it was swords or guns, and it wouldn't be guns back then, obviously, but swords or some other kind of martial art, archery, whatever it might be. The ability to defend ourselves in some form or another heals the animalistic mind. It heals the lower mind and allows it to relax a little bit. So martial arts are one of the most powerful ways of nourishing our spiritual body. Again, you can train whatever you want, whatever resonates with you. It doesn't have to be karate or kickboxing or judo or jiu-jitsu. It could be archery, it could be throwing knives if you like, it could be shooting, it could be survival training in the woods. It could be whatever kind of art can help you feel like you can defend yourself and save yourself if necessary. Climbing trees, some people it's CrossFit or something. You can also do hot yoga is a really powerful way to develop our spiritual body. Hot yoga in a hot, heated room takes an incredible amount of follow through and of persistence and determination to make it through the class. It's also very hot. It generates fire energy in our body. It helps us move around the energy in our body so we can start to flush out the pain that's stuck in there. Any kind of yoga is also a form of spiritual body practice. Yoga is obviously also associated with the mental body, the emotional body, and the physical body, but we're saying it here because it's the easiest way to start nourishing your first body that you want to work on, which is your spiritual body. You can work on all your bodies in any order. For me, really, I started doing my mental body and my emotional body when I was a kid, practicing karate and music and And then physical body, I got into nutrition and exercise and all those different things. But to fully heal your physical body, you have to heal your emotional body. And to heal your emotional body, you have to upgrade your mental body so you know how to actually do that. And in order to heal your mental body, you have to be able to take action in your life. So they're in this order because when we go in this order, we ensure that the next body is actually properly starting to heal. This is super deep stuff. That might mean nothing to you, and that's fine. At this level, that's totally normal. Fire breathing is another way to start generating fire energy and to move our spiritual energy around. Archery, I mentioned earlier. Any kind of focused meditation. You can stare at a candlelight if you like, the flame of a candle. Any kind of shooting, if you like to shoot things, preferably not small animals or people, but if you like to shoot things, targets or whatever, that's a great way of practicing your spiritual body too. The intention is to expel the spiritual body of the demons, as the Christians or Catholics or ancient, maybe Hebrews and others might call it. Again, I call it the pain entities, or shamans call it the intrusions, or I used to use the term the viruses from the body. We want to expel the viruses related to fear, procrastination, hesitation, pessimism, faithlessness, and so on through practices that require our courage and our focus. So if we're trying to face fears, then we have to do things that require courage. Because again, remember I told you earlier, courage is not the absence of fear, but the mastery of it. And so this work only works if we pair it with action, right? This is the stage of action. This is the stage of, the term that came to my mind is not really appropriate anymore, but nut up or shut up, right? Like this is the stage of like shit or get off the pot. Like, put your money where your mouth is. It's time to actually take action on your life. Are you going to move forward? Are you going to face what you're not facing, the suffering in your life that you're not facing? Are you going to recognize that you're creating this mess and it's time for you to clean it up? By training ourselves to take action through things like exercise, martial arts, etc., we begin to take action in other areas of our lives. So my dad taught me this exercise when I was a kid, and then I used it for most of my life. And then later on in life, I find out that there are so many billionaires and millionaires who practice this, and the simple practice is getting up and making your bed as soon as you get out of it. By getting up and making your bed right away, you're setting your mind up to take action on things for the rest of your day. So when you look at the mess on the counter and the garbage is right there, and you think, oh, I'll put it in the garbage later, or the dishes are right there and you want to put them in the dishwasher, or maybe, whatever the thing is that you're not taking action on. Taking action on things is going to help you move forward and actually make a difference in life. And again, there's a time to flow and there's a time to let shit go, but we need to be able to have this as a technique and as a skill that we're making a decision to not do it or to do it, rather than procrastinating and just not doing it because we're not taking action in other areas of our lives. There's a difference between deliberately flowing and letting things go, and flowing because we're just procrastinating and we're scared to take action in our lives. We're scared to put ourselves out there and we're scared to move forward. And most of that is unconscious. There are lots of people that think they're just flowing through life, but then all of a sudden they're 30, 40, 50, maybe 60 years old and they're like, oh shit, all those things I thought I was flowing towards didn't happen. I didn't actually create any of the things that I wanted to create. I didn't experience any of the part of the game that I wanted to experience. And this is your reminder to treat this like a video game. Treat this like what we're playing right now is a video game. Momentum creates miracles is one of the mantras that I like to use when it comes to the spiritual body. Momentum creates miracles. Remember, I told you in the last video, if you just imagine what you want and take action on it, that's the path. That's the totality of the path. Because by imagining what you want, what you're really doing is connecting to a vision of the future, of this potential future or another potential future, and then pulling it back through your action. Now your next action step will show up after you take this action step. Me doing these videos right now and putting this path out there, I'm not sure what's going to come next. I have some ideas, I have some visions, but I don't know what's going to come exactly next or what it's going to look like. My intuition is saying, no, you got to put all this stuff out there first, and then I'll tell you what's next. So I got to go with it. In this stage, we really begin to awaken to the pain of our ignorance, to the pain of not knowing how to create the life we want, the pain of not knowing how to heal ourselves, the pain of not knowing how to pray properly, if there is such a way, or powerfully, I should say. We recognize the ignorance of the inability to create relationships that actually work, that serve us, and that make us feel good about ourselves, or to create health in our body, or just to create an experience that we want. So we start to recognize really how little we know about trying to change our circumstances. And sometimes we start to feel even a little bit trapped. We start looking for someone or something that can help us. So instead of focusing on our problems, we start focusing on a solution. We change our focus from suffering to solution just by looking elsewhere. We learn that what we focus on is where we send our energy. I know that you've heard that before. What we focus on is where we send our energy. And so if we're focusing on our problems in a way that's, living from them, being a victim of them, then that's what we're creating for ourselves. But if we're focusing on our problems in a way that we're looking to heal them and looking to understand them and change them, then we've changed how we're focusing on them, and we've changed what we're focusing on. Now we're focusing on solution rather than remaining a victim. We begin to change our focus to what we want instead of what we don't want, which I mentioned a second ago. We begin to face our fears and really explore our edge. We get to really see what this edge is all about and what we're really stuck under here. Now, there are a few lessons that happen in the book, in the Greatest Secret, or the Greatest Secret series, the Shamanic Warrior and the Pilgrimage. And some of those lessons are that we really have to want it like a drowning man wants air. We really have to be willing to take action to move forward. And so if you want to continue on the path for your spiritual body, if you're looking to start initiating that, again, the first thing I suggest you do is get initiated. Whether it's through me or someone else, I don't care, but I really suggest you get initiated, because otherwise this could be a very challenging journey for you. Try a martial art, whether it's Qigong or Tai Chi or Kung Fu or a dancing art that's sort of like a martial art, or a Taebo class or a fitness class that has martial arts in it, or a Judo class or Jiu-Jitsu or Aikido. It doesn't matter. Try it and see how your courage starts to increase. See how you start to have more faith in yourself. See how you carry yourself in your relationships. See how you carry yourself when you walk down the street. Being a martial artist is almost like wearing a bulletproof vest but not having to wear one. It's kind of like it gives you a level of courage and a level of faith in yourself that you know that you can handle yourself in challenging situations. Because martial arts doesn't just teach you how to fight, it teaches you how to deal with conflict. It teaches you how to deal with struggle and stressful situations, and to hold a present mind, and to learn how to take action to change things instead of being a victim of your circumstances. It's incredibly powerful. It's esoteric in origin. All martial arts came from an esoteric origin primarily, which is, again, a magic kind of origin. There are martial artists that can punch through brick walls and stuff, and punch through lots of bricks using their mind, because they're so focused on what they want that they make it happen. Even though it defies gravity, defies laws of physics, defies whatever, they're able to achieve it. Join hot yoga, try it out if you're able to, if you're physically able to. This is a really powerful way to work on your spiritual body. You can start practicing things like archery or shooting, like I mentioned earlier. And again, I wrote it in capital letters here: convince your mind and body that you can protect yourself. And I'm not talking about carrying a gun, because that's not really learning to protect yourself. That's learning to be codependent to a weapon. I mean, learn how to protect yourself with nothing at all. Learn how to protect yourself in situations where you're maybe extra vulnerable. Maybe it's a wild animal. Maybe it's a wild forest that you're in. You need to learn how to eat off the land or whatever. Learn how to protect yourself from struggles. Whatever ones come to your mind, whatever direction you're led in, start there. Meditation is vital. I don't practice meditation every day anymore. I used to for a very long time. I practice ceremony or meditation or yoga every day. One of those three, usually all of them together, at least once a day. I practiced ceremony last night for hours, so it's part of my lifestyle. But practice meditation every day in the beginning if you'd like, to really develop that momentum. It will give you incredible results. I practiced meditation almost twice a day for years and got incredible results from it. Again, the fire breathing. That's a really powerful way to get your meditation in and your breathing exercises in at the same time. And finally, learn about the element fire. Google it. Look up books. Look up resources that help you understand the energy of the element fire, or the energy of Archangel Michael, or the energy of the force of nature that's expressed and categorized using this term, because that force of nature is the creative force of everything. It is the will of God, so to speak. The fire element is the will of God. Remember, in the Tetragrammaton, that ancient formula to represent creator or God, Yod He Vav He, or Yehovah or whatever you want to call it, fire is the first one. Fire is the first letter of that formula, because fire is the will of God. Fire is the intention. When we decide something, truly decide it in our heart and soul, and we take fucking action forward on it, nothing can stand in our way. Now, I said it has to be in your heart and soul, though. So if you're moving forward on something for validation or for some other means of motivation, you might not make it happen. It has to be heart and soul. So like protecting yourself or following your passion or following your dreams. If you do it with your heart and soul, nothing will stop you. You have the will of Creator behind you, because that's what we're all made of. So this is the first stage of the path. This is the stage where we're learning how to heal our spiritual body. On the esoteric side of things, which again, I can't really explain to you because you have to experience it in some kind of ritual and start going down that path yourself. But regardless, what we're really doing here is we're making friends with one of our archangels or our guardian angels, which I refer to as the warrior knight, but who is also referred to as, in the ancient system, as Archangel Michael. So this warrior knight, this Archangel Michael character, is one of our guardian angels, but it or he is also part of who we really are as Yeshua. So in other words, in the Bible, when they say Jesus is the one who commands the angels, what they really mean is Jesus is the one who commands the elements, because that is what he or it is. By commanding the elements, what we're really doing is balancing all of our spiritual bodies to the point where they work for us, all of our elemental bodies rather, so they work for us, so they create. Fire in my body is fire in the universe, earth in my body is earth in the universe. If I tell earth and fire in my body to create for me opportunities in my world that reflect my intentions, the elements will then go out and manifest the synchronicities and lead you along the path. Again, that's the esoteric side of things, so that's a little bit deeper. But this is the basics right now. So that's it for the first stage, the stage of the awakening. As I mentioned, I don't know how long this stage will last for you. In some ways, I'm still in this stage. I mean, the stages kind of overlap each other. They kind of work into each other. I think we might go through this process multiple times, and we go through it for every stage. So the awakening stage also has an awakening stage, an awareness stage, an acceptance stage, an alignment stage, and an ascension stage before we move on to the next stage, which is awareness, which also goes through all of these stages. And then each of these stages probably goes through another smaller stage, and a smaller set of stages, and a smaller set of stages, because, like Kabbalah, this system is like a spiral. It's infinite. It's broken down into infinite micro steps, just like physical matter is broken down into infinite micro steps that we will never fully understand. So don't even try. But, well, don't try. Don't be attached to fully understanding it, because that's very unlikely to happen. All right? Got to change my language. That's the awakening stage, everyone. Let's move on to the awareness stage next, and we'll jump into the mental body. And once again, I'm going to remind you in each video, please start seeking the opportunity to be initiated. It will change your life, whether it's through me or someone else. I don't care. Just please make sure you make it happen for yourself. Everything will change, and change rapidly. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll see you in the next video.